Welcome to Humans of Reliability. I'm Sylvain Kalache, head of the Rootly AI Labs and your host for today. In this episode, we are joined by Brian Shaw, the SVP Infrastructure and Core Banking at Uphold. Let's dive in. Brian, Uphold really operates at the intersection of crypto and, I would say, traditional finance. So what are the most challenging reliability requirements that emerge from needing to satisfy both of these worlds?
I think we're in an interesting place in that regard because we're subject to a certain extent multiple markets, right? Depending on what's happening specifically in the crypto market can affect what's happening with our user base as well as the traditional finance world. So when we watch the news and we see certain market activities happening, both of those sides affect us quite a bit.
Is there any specific challenges or consequences on how your platform is performing on a reliability point of view that we may not, you may not have faced in other companies that don't have these specific requirements?
I guess I don't know how truly unique we are. I think our biggest thing really in my mind is kind of the traditional scaling challenges. We can be operating pretty normal 1 minute, just having relatively normal transaction volumes, people trading, going on with their normal business. And just a certain piece of news or a certain thing that happens in the world can just trigger everything to just spike up like crazy.
How do you handle this spike? Do you have any specific architecture in place that you can speak about?
Sure. It kind of goes back to fundamentals, really, and kind of making sure that our microservices architecture is truly a microservices architecture, that services really are decoupled in a way that if something fails, you maybe have a way to work without that particular piece of it, that you can scale different components of that individually so that you can kind of handle those different pieces of load. Again, it's just kind of, certain things in the news, roughly at the time, kind of if you looked at our normal statistics, roughly 80 to 100,000 requests per minute was sort of our normal when you're looking at the traffic. And within seconds, we were up to about 700,000 in the same amount of time. And we needed to be able to adapt to that instantly. So it definitely keeps you on your toes.
And are you using cloud native and Kubernetes? It's obviously kind of became the de facto way of handling this type of traffic changes. Are you using any interesting cloud native setup, or what's your use of cloud native technology has been like?
Yeah, so I don't believe it's a secret. I mean, we host most of our infrastructure in AWS. We do run all of our critical systems on Kubernetes. To help us manage that, we use EKS from AWS to kind of strip away some of the day-to-day management of that stuff. I think one of the most important tools that we've implemented on that side is a tool called Carpenter. It's an open source tool from Amazon themselves, but it helps us keep the nodes rolling, keep the nodes updating. It really helps us scale. So it's built into lots of different metrics and their platform so that if we need to just suddenly add a whole bunch of nodes and start balancing out where different pods and workloads are running, it can happen pretty quickly. And likewise, with any of these things, scaling back down at the end of an event is really important.
Is there any specific incident that you face, you solved it, and you learn something significant from it?
There's a certain incident that we actually have a title for in our company. And it was a couple of years ago, actually. So it's not the freshest of stories, but effectively what happened was the SEC in the US made a certain ruling on crypto assets, and the markets reacted very positively to it. As a broker of these assets, we were one of the only people who were carrying this particular one. And basically the entire markets came to us to start trading that. Basically, we lost out on an entire day of trading that asset because our systems couldn't handle the load. Looking back at that as a retroactive thing, that resulted in the creation of a formal platform reliability team within Uphold with people dedicated to making sure that all of the right things are in place to help us prevent that type of thing in the future.
And when you build this reliability team, are there like specific principles that you put in place to ensure that this team would do their job properly?
Yes, to a certain extent. So we didn't adapt a particular methodology or kind of lift what we see everybody doing. We tried to take the parts that made the most sense to us as a business. The biggest factor in this is learning from that particular incident and understanding where all the failures were and first working on those. Over time, that has evolved into a little bit more structured of a team within the organization. Aligns probably most closely with, I guess, kind of the SRE principles that we get out of the Google side of the world. But again, we're not following it specific. We don't have specific error budgets that we're setting or things like that. We're just looking at specific metrics that mean something to us that we know how we're performing and that we can achieve those different goals that we've set.
Is there like any, interesting to share security threats that Uphold has to manage that, you can share with us?
I think we're at an interesting place in general. I think anybody in the finance world has a lot of security concerns. And then I think within our industry, straddling both the traditional finance and crypto, there's a lot of people interested in what we have. One of the interesting things and one of the things that sets Uphold apart from others in our industry is we're fully transparent with our reserves, and we make sure that we actually fully reserved with the assets. And so if our customers are holding a certain amount of assets, we hold all of that for them. And we have a transparency page right on our website. So at any given time, anybody in the world can go to our website and they can see exactly the value of the assets that we're holding, which I think obviously makes us an interesting target, right? Because we're telling you what we have to get at. We follow a lot of things, right? We have chosen to be a regulated entity. We fall under certain regulations as PCI because we issue cards. We also adhere to ISO 27001, SOC 2, and other different standards. That's something that's, I guess, pretty common among places, which helps us, I guess, have a framework of things to follow. But we feel the need to probably take these things a little bit further. I guess as a lot of financial institutions probably do, we have a lot to protect. We're always conscious of how do we make sure that things are secure from the inside as well as from the outside, making sure that the right people have the right access to things, protecting secrets and not logging into systems, etc. I don't know, again, that it's particularly unique to us, but it's definitely something that is forefront in everything that we do.
So you spoke a lot about making sure that you are staying in compliance, and obviously you have a lot of reliability standard to maintain. How do you balance this out with the need to be constantly innovating?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I personally, over the years, I've worked for a lot of different types of organizations where, especially in finance, right? Like you can get into the trap to where there's so many controls you can't push a change for months or like years even. And we definitely aren't that way. It's really around having good processes, having as automated of processes as possible, just enabling people to do what they need to do. You don't necessarily have to trust, I guess, every person or every piece of the process, but as a whole, if you trust the different components and you have the right automations and parts of the system that you trust those checks and balances, then it helps you move quickly. We deploy tens, hundreds of times a day to production, and we're able to do that, within the limits of our regulation and our security controls.
100 times a day is pretty impressive for a financial institution.
Yeah.
If you look at like what technology or industry shift you see as transformative for the reliability side of engineering in fintech, like is there anything specific that comes to mind for you?
Without trying to jump on a specific popular topic at the moment, one of the things that I'm finding the most interesting is probably some of the AI tools and trying to use those to our benefit in helping us uncover things that we might not see normally. you can point something at your infrastructure's code repo or your application repo and just say, find me typos, find me security concerns, right? Obviously there's a lot of learning for us to be able to get the right prompts and kind of understanding how to properly respond to the feedback we get from those systems. But it's a really easy way to uncover a lot that you probably wouldn't with your own eyes, right? You can't just kind of scroll through an entire application repo and find all those things, obviously. And the machine can do it for us and help us make those things better.
And we speak a lot about AI in the scope of developer productivity, but I think little is said about how can this impact the engineer who are supporting and operating this code. What's your opinion on this?
We're all on a learning journey at the moment, right? The way all of us work is shifting. And I think we're all trying to figure it out together. Some of us love it. Some of us hate it. Trying to take a look at that, I guess, from the angle of our platform reliability, I think trying to figure out how to use those tools to maybe analyze what's happening in our environment, taking a look at the logs, taking a look at the metrics, and trying to signal us the things that we might not notice otherwise. Getting alerts for things where the AI might find some anomaly in our metrics or errors or something that our normal human configured monitoring doesn't pick up. For example, taking a look at patterns around, maybe how many instances of the application is running or where certain failures are coming from, and just trying to learn and expand on that. I don't have a specific example on that particular case yet. However, it's definitely something that we're trying to do and trying to leverage as we move forward to help the team. And I think the important thing here is it's less about, I guess, doing the work for us, but making us more efficient and uncovering the stuff that we don't normally see.
So do you see AI causing more incidents or helping reduce the number of incidents?
Mm-hmm. So far for us in our experiments, it's not resulting in more. I don't know that I have enough data to say that it's resulting in less yet. But I think looking forward, it's what determines that is how people decide to use it. If we're using it responsibly in our development and not just, letting something write our whole piece of code and just shipping it, but rather having it help us and effectively pair programming with it to achieve the appropriate outcome, then I think it's going to help probably reduce incidents over time.
Brian, if people want to get in touch with you, where can they find you on the internet?
In a few random dark holes, I guess. Easiest way to find me is probably just looking me up on LinkedIn. Feel free to drop me a message there. We can connect.
Cool. All right, Brian, thank you for coming on the show.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.